Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something, especially to the ladies in the room. You will never get what you truly want from a man if you don't first believe you deserve it. See, here's the truth. Men don't give you what you ask for. They give you what you require. If you set the bar low, he'll step right over it. If you raise that bar high, he's either going to climb up to meet it or walk away. And either way, you win. You know, one of the biggest problems I see today is that too many people don't even recognize their own worth before they start asking for things from somebody else. And I'm talking mainly to the ladies right now because I've been around long enough to see how this goes. You can't expect a man to treat you like a queen if you don't even see yourself as one. You can't expect him to give you the respect, the time, the love, the attention if deep down you don't believe you deserve it. That's the truth nobody wants to say out loud, but I'm going to tell you because I don't sugarcoat nothing. See, here's what happens. You get into a relationship and you start asking for things, call me more, respect me more, show me more effort, and yet at the same time you accepting less. You saying one thing with your mouth, but your actions telling a whole different story. If you don't know your worth, you're going to keep accepting whatever crumbs get tossed your way. And let me tell you, men ain't dumb. They notice what you allow and they adjust. If you accept being treated halfway, that's all you ever going to get. Knowing your worth is not arrogance. It's not walking around with your nose up. It's about walking with confidence. When you walk into a room and you know who you are, you don't got to beg for love. You don't got to beg for attention. You don't got to chase nobody. You attract the right energy because people can feel it. A man can tell if a woman respects herself. He can tell by the way you carry yourself, the way you set boundaries, the way you handle situations. If you don't see yourself as valuable, why should he? And let me break this down plain and simple. When you go shopping, you don't walk into a luxury store and ask them to lower their prices just because you feel like it. You know why? Because the store already knows its value. That's why the price tag don't change. Either you pay what it's worth or you walk out. That's the mindset you got to have with yourself. You ain't for everybody. You ain't supposed to be discounted on clearance or 2 for 1. You are one of a kind. So why you acting like a bargain bin? Ladies, I'm telling you, when you start believing in your worth, the whole game changes. You stop chasing after the wrong men. You stop crying over the ones who didn't see your value. You stop begging for attention. Instead, you sit back and let the right man step up, because the right man don't get scared off by standards. Standards don't scare a real man. They separate him from the boys. And if he can't rise to the level of what you deserve, then baby, he wasn't the one anyway. I hear women all the time say, but Steve, if I set my standards too high, I might end up alone. Let me fix that right now. Being alone ain't the same as being lonely. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is sit still and not settle until the right one comes along. Don't let fear make you cheapen yourself. Don't let loneliness trick you into lowering your value, because the moment you do that, you teaching him and every man after him that you don't believe in your own worth. And I tell you this, when a woman knows her worth, she walks different. She talks different. She don't even entertain foolishness. A man comes at her sideways, she shuts it down. A man plays games, she steps back. She don't argue for respect. She demands it with silence and self-control. That's power right there. That's knowing you ain't got to prove nothing to nobody, because your life and your presence already speak for you. So I need you to hear me today. Stop asking for things from a man before you learn how to give them to yourself. Stop asking for love if you don't love yourself. Stop asking for respect if you don't respect yourself. Stop asking for commitment if you ain't even committed to your own growth. It all starts with you. When you raise your value in your own eyes, everybody around you got to adjust. Men don't respect what you request, they respect what you require. That's a lesson a lot of people miss, and it's why so many end up frustrated in relationships. See, requests sound optional. A request is like a favor. Could you maybe call me more? Could you spend more time with me? Could you treat me better? That kind of talk leaves too much room for choice. But when you require something, it ain't optional anymore. It's the price of admission to be with you. And trust me, men hear that loud and clear. Let me break it down. A request is saying, I'd like flowers once in a while. A requirement is saying, if you want to be with me, I need consistency. I need effort. I need to know you thought about me even when I wasn't around. A request is telling him, please don't disrespect me. A requirement is showing him with your actions, if you disrespect me, I'm gone, period. That's the difference, and that's where the respect comes in. Men test boundaries. That's what we do. We test them to see where the line really is. And if we find out the line can be moved every time we push, we keep pushing. But when we hit that wall that don't move, that's when we know, all right, she's serious. If I want her in my life, I got to step up. And you know what? The right man will step up because requirements don't scare him, they guide him. See, you can't just ask for better treatment and then keep accepting the same old behavior. That's why some of y'all stuck. You keep requesting, but you don't require. You say, I want respect, but when he disrespects you, you stay. You say, I want commitment, but when he plays games, you still answer the phone. You say, I want consistency, but when he disappears for days and comes back like nothing happened, you let it slide. And let me tell you something real. What you allow is what will continue. Now, when a woman starts requiring instead of requesting, she changes the whole dynamic. She's no longer negotiating her standards. She's standing firm in them. And men feel that difference. A man can ignore a request, but he can't ignore a requirement. A requirement has consequences attached to it. And men understand consequences. If he knows that his behavior will cost him access to you, his actions will change real quick. If he truly wants you, I remember talking to a woman once who said, Steve, I told him over and over again what I wanted, but he still won't give it to me. I asked her, well, what happens when he doesn't give it to you? She got quiet. That was her problem. She was requesting, but not requiring. She was asking, but not enforcing. And that's where so many women fall short. They don't back their words up with action. And don't think requiring makes you mean, difficult, or high maintenance. That's what people who can't meet your standards will try to tell you. Requiring just means you know what it takes for you to feel secure, loved, and respected, and you're not afraid to stand by it. A real man is not going to run from that. He's going to appreciate it because it gives him clear direction. It tells him exactly what lane he needs to stay in. Men actually like requirements. You know why? Because it sets the tone. It removes the guessing game. If you let him know up front, this is how I expect to be treated, then he knows right away whether he can handle it or not. And if he can't, good. He'll move on. But if he can, he's going to put in the effort to rise to that level. Requirements separate the men who are serious from the ones who are just passing time. So don't waste your energy begging, pleading, or repeating yourself. shift from requesting to requiring. That shift is where respect lives. When you require respect, you get respect. When you require effort, you get effort. When you require honesty, you get honesty. And the man who isn't willing to give those things will remove himself, which is a blessing, because it clears the way for the man who will. The biggest mistake people make in relationships is settling for less than what they deserve. And the sad part is, most of the time, you already know you're settling. You already feel it in your gut, but you convince yourself that it's okay because at least you got somebody. But let me tell you something. Being with the wrong somebody is a whole lot lonelier than being by yourself. Too many of you are in situations where you put in all the effort, all the time, all the love, and what you're getting back don't even come close to what you deserve. That ain't love. That's a bad deal. See, settling always starts small. It's those little compromises that go against your spirit. At first, it's just ignoring a red flag here or letting a broken promise slide there. You tell yourself, it's not that big a deal. But every time you do that, you chip away at your own value. Before you know it, you've lowered your standards so much that you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And that's how people end up stuck in relationships that drain them instead of build them. Now, don't get me wrong, every relationship requires compromise. But there's a difference between compromise and settling. Compromise is meeting in the middle on small things. Settling is giving up big parts of who you are just to keep somebody who ain't even trying to keep you. And the danger of settling is that it teaches the other person that they can keep giving you less and you'll still stick around. Once they see that, they'll never step up, because why would they? You've already shown them they can get away with the bare minimum. And let's be real, settling doesn't just rob you of happiness in the moment, it robs you of your future. Because while you busy wasting years on someone who ain't treating you right, you could have been living a life full of love, joy, and respect with somebody who actually sees your worth. Every year you stay with less than you deserve is another year you could have been living with more. I hear people say, but Steve, what if this is the best I can do? Let me tell you something. If you're even asking that question, you already know deep down that you deserve better. Don't let fear convince you to settle. Don't let loneliness talk you into taking whatever's available. And don't let somebody's half love convince you that's all there is. Because real love will never make you feel like you're begging for scraps. Real love don't have you crying every night. Real love fills you up. It don't drain you dry. When you stop settling, you change the whole game. You start carrying yourself differently. You stop chasing people who ain't chasing you. You stop giving energy to relationships that don't feed your soul. You stop making excuses for behavior you know is wrong, and what happens? You make room for better. The moment you raise your standards, life has a way of bringing people into your world who meet them. But as long as you keep lowering your standards, you'll keep attracting the same type of disappointment over and over again. And let me tell you this, sometimes the reason you keep settling is because you don't want to be alone. But I need you to understand, there's nothing wrong with being alone. Being alone gives you time to heal, to grow, to figure out who you are and what you really want. Settling keeps you stuck in a situation where you're lonely even though you're not alone. And that right there is the worst kind of loneliness. So stop telling yourself that less is better than nothing. Stop convincing yourself that you got to accept whatever's offered. You are not a charity case. You are not someone's last option. You are worthy of being loved fully, deeply, and consistently. But the only way you're ever going to get that is if you stop settling for anything less, because life will always give you exactly what you're willing to accept. Raise the bar and watch who rises to meet it. Love is not something you should ever have to beg for. The moment you find yourself begging for love, attention, or respect, you're already telling the other person that they can give you less and still keep you. And once that message gets across, you're trapped in a cycle where you keep pleading for something that should have been freely given from the start. That's not love, that's survival on crumbs. You don't beg for love, you set standards that demand it. See, begging looks like chasing someone down for a text back, blowing up their phone because they're not answering, waiting around for them to finally notice you, or bending over backwards just to get the bare minimum of affection. And when you do that, you start losing yourself. You start questioning your own worth. You start believing that maybe you're asking for too much, when in reality, you're asking for the basics. Real love doesn't need begging. It recognizes you, it respects you, and it gives to you willingly. But here's the truth. People treat you according to the standards you set. If you make it clear from day one what you will and won't tolerate, you don't have to beg for love, because your standards already demand it. Standards are not about being harsh, they're about being clear. They say, if you want access to me, this is how I need to be treated. And that clarity separates the ones who are serious from the ones who are just passing time. Begging weakens you, but standards strengthen you. When you beg, you're saying, I need you to validate me. I need you to prove I'm worthy. When you set standards, you're saying, I already know I'm worthy, and if you can't meet me here, then you don't belong here. And that energy changes everything, because people can sense when you believe in yourself. Now, don't get it twisted. Setting standards doesn't mean making unreasonable demands. It doesn't mean expecting someone to be perfect. It simply means knowing what healthy love looks like for you and refusing to settle for anything less. If you need consistency, say it. If you need respect, require it. If you need honesty, stand on it. And the beauty of it is, the right person won't be offended by your standards. They'll be relieved, because a real partner wants to know how to love you the right way. The problem is, too many people lower their standards just to keep somebody around. You start out saying, I need a man who calls me every day, but when he doesn't, you let it slide. You start out saying, I won't deal with lying, but when he lies, you accept his excuses. Before long, you've trained him that your standards don't matter. And once a man learns he can break your rules without consequence, he'll keep doing it. Not because he's evil, but because you allowed it. Love is supposed to be a choice, not a courtroom. If you got to keep presenting evidence and making your case for why you deserve love, you're begging. If you got to keep proving you're worth their time, you're begging. But when you set standards, you never have to explain your worth, because it's already understood. Either they rise up to meet your level or they move on, and both outcomes benefit you. I'll tell you something else. When you beg for love, you put yourself in a powerless position. But when you set standards, you take your power back. You stop wasting time trying to convince someone to treat you right, and you start making space for the one who will. Standards aren't walls, they're doors. Doors that only open to the people who are meant to walk through them. So stop pleading for affection. Stop chasing after attention. Stop